What's up, everyone? This is the last episode for George and I on the rewatch. We're talking Spider-Man No Way Home. It's the third installment in the John Watts trilogy. I don't think it really needs much more introduction than that. George, you want to kick us off? Share your thoughts?
I said yesterday was going to be the last time, but I'm going to say it again. Spin that logo. I'm going to tell our editor to spin the logo for us.
There you go.
He doesn't really care. Anyway, yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. It hits.
True.
And I'm not just talking about the emotional toll of, that big death in the second act, that big choice made by Peter Parker at the end of the film. Wait, who's Peter Parker? But it hits
right there.
What I mean by it hits is that so much was promised with this film. We had confirmation, disappointingly confirmed. I will say that I would have rather this not have been revealed until I was in the theater opening night. We knew Alfred Molina was coming back as Doc Ock. We knew that Jamie Foxx was back as Electro. Trailers revealed that Willem Dafoe was back, and we had, some sort of inclination about Reese Ifans and Thomas Hayden Church. Obviously, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were not on the press junket, but they were denying it in everything that they were asked about, or at least Andrew was.
But we didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah, but this movie hits on everything it promised, and I think that's what makes it such a powerful film in delivering its story, is that all of that extra stuff that came beforehand and all the conversations that people were having, all the message boards, all of Twitter, all of that talk about this movie was met with a film that delivered on hopes and expectations. So I was really pleased with my opening night experience. I've seen the movie 4 times now. Today was the 4th time I've seen it. It just came out 4.5 months ago. We can talk about the plot all we want, and we have, and we will. But just as a movie and as a Spider-Man movie, this one feels really good.
Yeah, I think it's the most like a Spider-Man film. I think our buddy Declan was the one that said that on Unqualified Filmbros. But I think he's right. There's all of the right notes of him fighting the bad guys, and the love interest and relationship with adult figures, whether that's Uncle Ben or Aunt May. In this case, it's Aunt May. And then finding who he is as Spider-Man, right? That's the end of the film. Is Peter Parker fully accepts his responsibility to be Spider-Man, but nobody knows. He's anonymous again. And so it'll be really interesting to see where new projects take him, whether that's in more film appearances or in TV shows or whatever it might be. I think it'll be really interesting to follow that arc throughout. It felt like an end to this part of the story, but obviously there's so much left open, because there are stories to be told, and it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I think one of the crutches that Marvel Studios and Sony used as part of their partnership for these 3 films is that Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, had a mentor figure, a Marvel Studios, Marvel Comics character as a mentor. There's no Uncle Ben in the MCU, or none that we've seen. He's mentioned in What If, but we haven't met his Uncle Ben. You got Aunt May filling that role, but you get Tony Stark in Spider-Man Homecoming. You get Nick Fury in Spider-Man Far From Home. You get Doctor Strange in No Way Home until he's largely absent from the second and third acts. But I think that that's what this iteration of the character needed. And we've talked about it when we talked about Homecoming and when we talked about Far From Home, is that this Peter Parker is as much of a kid as we've seen. And that's what he needed from these three movies, and especially in No Way Home, when, he's trying to figure out how to manage this life that he is now thrust into. And then the dust sort of settles at the end of the movie where he is on his own. And that's where we're going to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man go in the next trilogy, because that's been confirmed. Amy Pascal, Kevin Feige talking about a new trilogy of movies, reportedly not starting for another 5 years, which is, it's a long time to wait. But, people complain about, oh, he's had help in every movie. That's who he's been. The next Spider-Man movies are going to be Spider-Man versus bad guy. It's going to feel like, I don't know if it'll feel the same in tone or story like the Sam Raimi or Mark Webb movies with Tobey and Andrew, but they're going to feel like Spider-Man movies. He's going to be the main guy. There's no Peter relationship to fall back on like there was with Tony Stark or Stephen Strange. I'm getting off topic talking about the future when we should be talking about No Way Home.
No, that's fine. I do see your point, right? That they could continue a little bit darker tone of No Way Home and sort of try and draw him out of that in the next trilogy. Or with the time jump, it's really easy to just say, oh yeah, 5 years have passed. I mean, at that point, both in the MCU timeline and in our own real world, we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. So much can be announced. There's this big movie coming out very soon called Multiverse of Madness that could really change a lot of things.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it tonight. Max is seeing it tonight. We're excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. But
it's gonna be so great.
There's a lot that can happen in between literally tonight and
5 years
from now. So yeah, but I think a really fitting end to the trilogy that John Watts introduced us to and told a really consistent story throughout all three of them. And I think really great development for Peter and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Especially, like we were saying that Declan said on that episode of Unqualified Filmbros a few months ago, it really does feel like a Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the Spider-Man villains. It's about, it's as much about Peter Parker rehabilitating them as it is about their legacy in Spider-Man lore. And what does the Green Goblin mean for Spider-Man? What does Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius, ridiculous name, mean for Spider-Man? Electro, Sandman, Lizard. This feels like a Spider-Man movie because we've got all of those classic characters from the comics. But the emotional impact on the fans is twofold because these are all guys we've seen before. We get to, it's like a greatest hits record of 20 years of Spider-Man movies playing out in 2.5 hours in a story that, I said to my buddy as we walked out of the theater on opening night, this was so new and so fresh. We talked about with WandaVision and Shang-Chi and Eternals, we talked about new stories in the MCU in phase 4. But for me, for someone who caught up to the MCU by watching phases 1, 2, and 3 before Endgame, You know, Phase 4 is my first as it premieres experience with the MCU. And this story just felt so new, and it still feels like this is pressing forward in the story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the fact that we get that with all of these returning actors and returning characters makes it so much fun. And, there's a heavy emotional toll of this movie. Aunt May dies at the hands of the Goblin. Peter asks Strange to make everyone forget who he is, and it works. He talks with Happy at the end of the movie, talks with MJ and Ned at the end of the movie. Or MJ, not really Ned, because he's just kind of there. But there's such an emotional toll, and yet you get the Spider-Man pointing meme. You get Andrew Garfield going, Peter 3. You get the Spider-Man shooting shit on the Statue of Liberty.
Out their web fluid.
Yeah. It's as much, a drama as it is a comedy. And I think that John Watts has really solidified what type of Spider-Man movies he's wanted to tell by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he absolutely hits home. He nails it with Spider-Man No Way Home.
Absolutely. I think with that, let's just dive into actually putting numbers on this thing. George, you want to go first?
Let's put numbers on this thing. Well, there's only one number that I haven't used in my MCU ranking. It won the MCU bracket that we did a couple months ago with the other guys, with Ben and Declan. That's for good reason. It's number 2 out of 32 for me. It's my favorite Spider-Man film, independent of the MCU. It's just so gosh dang good. And for that reason, I'm going to give it the second highest, naturally, as it's number 2. Second highest score out of 100. I'm going to give it a 98. This is one of my 30 favorite movies of all time. Spider-Man No Way Home is the perfect way to end the rewatch.
Yeah. We're gonna be the exact same. Spider-Man No Way Home is my number 2 project out of 32. Moon Knight is actually just wrapped. We're done with Moon Knight at this point. But so technically 33.
And what a
projects.
finale, right?
Yeah. Oof. We'll talk about that later.
Maybe we'll get the other guys.
So,
who knows?
Yeah, 32 projects plus Moon Knight that just finished. 2 out of 32, 98 out of 100. What a way to end the rewatch. I mean, it knocks it out of the park.
It's been a fun last 32 days.
Yeah.
Hanging out, talking
really
on Zoom every night, watching
really
a lot of MCU movies, MCU TV shows.
It got tricky with the TV shows being like 5 hours long and trying to figure out how to squeeze that into a day. But, we worked it out.
We made it work.
And yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us at the Rewatch. George and Max signing off for the very last time. With a full rewatch, we may come back and just tack on more episodes. But for our full entire rewatch, signing off. This was episode 32. We talked about Spider-Man No Way Home. Go see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I am leaving right now to go see it. Good night.
I'm seeing it in a few hours. By the time that this airs. All right. Good night.
Bye.